The gods are subject to the law of cause and effect. At the end of the Mahabharata, Lord Krishna is cursed by a human being, by Ma Gandhari. And he doesn't say, how dare you, this blasphemy. He accepts it as you command, mother. People with complete clear moral certainty just went around massacring tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people simply because they worshipped idols.
Mughals, why do we call them Mughal at all? Why don't we call them Mongol? And because that's the origin. They were Mongols. And the minute we call them Mongols, the debate ends.
I certainly don't call for the elimination of Sanatan. I'm a very proud Sanatani. In fact, I think perhaps the world needs the philosophies of Sanatan. Right? There is a divine outside, but the universe itself is also divine. The earth is divine, the rivers, trees. That's why we are natural environmentalists. You and I are divine. That's what Namaste means. I bow to the divine within you.
Central threads of wisdom were common. There is order, there is chaos. There is light, there is darkness. There is the good in bad and the bad in good.
In Delhi, we are sitting in Delhi from the slave dynasty, 1200, to the British era. Not one temple was built in Delhi. There's this lovely line which is there in the Natya Shastra. Satyam bruat priyam bruat. Na bruat satyam apriyam. Speak the truth, but speak it with love. And if you cannot speak the truth with love, then stay silent.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching or listening to another edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Thank you for liking, for subscribing, and sharing these conversations with people who you think will benefit from listening to them. My guests today are siblings, Amish and Bhavna, whose books have sold millions of copies. The books are lessons on Dharma, the Indian epics, Amish's Shiva Trilogy and Ramachandra series. They are must to read. They are fictional characterizations of heroes of Hindu epics. Written in a simple language, Amish's books are appealing to people of all age groups. The Tripathi siblings have written on Sanatana Dharma being valid for all times. Their latest book, Idols, has presented varied interpretations of myths and legends associated with idols in a unique style of conversation between a family. Joining me in this conversation is my colleague Ishan Prakash. So let's get chatting with the Tripathi siblings. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast. Ishan and I were just discussing, before you guys came in, I have not interviewed an author whose 6, 7, 8 books we have read between us.
Thank you.
So
Thank absolutely fantastic, yes.
We've read like maybe a 1 or 2 or something like that. So absolute honor. We devour your books as soon as they hit the stands. And, what I liked about the latest one, I urge all my viewers and listeners, do buy this book. It's very easy read. Anybody from like 15 to 16, I would say, age group, to right up till your mom's, dad's, grandparents. Buy it for them for Christmas and for the New Year's. It's a good chutti read, which you can read. It's
I
called...
second her view. Buy it.
Needless to say, I third it.
Idols, Unearthing.
Yes, it's understood. Absolutely. There was no dissent over here. Absolutely.
So, we decided to have this setting because that's the kind of format that you've used in the book, which Ishan and I initially, we were like, ऐसा वाला format पढ़ने में थोड़ा सा simplistic लग रहा है. It's I want it to be either fiction or a play or non-fiction. You know how it is like when you break the mold, it takes a chapter or two to figure out why this format. Yeah. So firstly, let's begin with that about this, which why you call network of ideas woven in multiple conversations.
Why this format?
Why this format?
I think the best way to see it, it's not breaking a mold, it's recreating a mold that we've forgotten. That's all. The modern conception of a non-fiction book and a fiction book actually comes from the West. Which, Didi and I were discussing rightly, comes from Aristotle.
Just so cute, he calls you Didi.
Of course.
Yeah, of course, she's 8 years elder.
No? We completely buy into hierarchy.
Yeah. No.
I'm older.
No, you should always know who's younger, who's elder. Okay. But Aristotle and his views, but it's also the Abrahamic conception of truths and untruths. That there is one truth and the others are false. So you'll notice Western non-fiction books tend to be from that perspective. The entire point of a non-fiction book, here's the hypothesis, and my job is to convince you of this hypothesis and why others are nonsense. Which is not the way it was in ancient India. You see our Upanishads, they're always a dialogue.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And contradictions.
Exactly. Because there are multiple points of view. Even the Bhagavad Gita is in effect a dialogue.
Yes.
Right? It's not just a pravachan by Lord Krishna, because Arjuna has the right to ask questions.
Yes.
It was so in ancient times in the West as well. See the Socratic dialogues, Platonic, which were written by Plato, but there were always conversations. What is the idea behind this? You have multiple points of view, and the author does not say that this is the truth, you better believe it, otherwise you're going to burn in hell. No, we present different points of view, then you think about it and work out what works best for you, right, of those philosophies. This was the way it used to be in ancient times, because we never believed in these binaries, good, evil, black, white, because the real world is complex. So actually both dharma and idols, we've written it with this perspective, with multiple points of view. What it also does is not just that, it actually makes it easier to understand as well, because it's not a textbook. You read the Socratic dialogues, which are far more complex than many modern Western non-fiction books, but you'll get it, because it's written in the form of dialogues. It has conversation. It just becomes, it's natural to us. That's how we actually communicate, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that was the idea.
So that's what you say in that. I'll just read out. This is how I do my interviews with authors. I have it
Madam
all flagged.
Smita, we know that.
So I'm going to read out so that, because it also encourages people to understand that that's how I do it, and that's how it really I go back to books. I read it at one go, but then I go back to books, because sometimes there's a conflict going on in your mind, which could be work related conflict, it could be personal conflict, and I say, yaar, us time मैंने वो अमीश की किताब पढ़ी थी, उसमें एक चीज थी. Now how do I go back to it? So I flag my books. So I know it looks like I have vandalized the book, but that's not the case.
That's the way our dad read.
Yeah.
Really?
Okay, so I would, our family, everyone reads a lot. Okay. And we would know that dad didn't need bookmarks, because he used to make notes. Okay, he would underline, he would put
I do that.
comments. And then wherever the notes have stopped, that's where he'd stopped, right?
Yeah.
So whenever, and we give books to each other as well. So I would only give books to dad once I had read it, because
Kachar,
it
kachar.
would be readable.
Indian education system.
Yeah.
Exam की पढ़ाई में.
Exam की पढ़ाई.
So if I
Sorry,
may,
go ahead.
if I may
Go ahead,
add to this, my father passed away in 2021, and he just went. He told a staff member that he's going to sleep for a bit, and within 5 minutes he was gone. When my brothers Anish and Ashish reached, they found a book open beside him, Siddharth Mukherjee's The Gene, page 292.
He was reading,
Underlined.
and he just put it down.
Underlined,
Wow.
because that's when he stopped.
Bhavna, you faced loss, your husband and your father, round about the same time. How does that impact on you when you sit down to write? Because you've written this book just coming out of a phase of grief, and even in the foreword that you have written, the word grief comes in quite often, and the conversations in the book are also hospital, those kind of things. How does that work in the creative process?
So I'll make it more fundamental. I lost my husband in 2018, May 2018, and I was lost. I was beyond drowning in grief. I had lost the will to live. I had sunk into the depths of a very dark depression. The COVID shutdown happened in March 2020. And a month later, Amish called me up. He was in London at the time, because he knew intuitively that, she's drowning, and now she's, just trapped at home, and she'll be completely lost. And he called me up and said, Didi, you remember those projects we were working on? because we had begun working on the idea was to bring philosophy front end and keep the storylining back end. But that was his genius, which came later. We had worked on a manuscript of ideas that actually have spread over dharma and idols. But then my husband fell ill in 2016 and that was forgotten. He called me up in April 2020 and said, Didi, you remember that project? Let's start working on it. And I understand that was a lifeline he threw at me. I desperately needed that lifeline. I was drowning. And I began working on the project. I worked 12 to 14 hours a day because it was my means of just staying, keeping my head above the waters. And as it has worked out, Smita, I know he has brought me back to life because, one, I suppose, lives for two reasons. One is happiness and the other is purpose. And he's re-gifted me my purpose for living.
Amazing. Amazing.
Just going on that only, it's a very touching story. I mean, the way the book starts, there's a family which is rushing into the OPD, into the emergency room, and then, the facets of Hinduism and the esoteric aspects of Hinduism with the Socratic dialogues involved in it as well. They talk about it, and then it heads towards, I don't want to give any spoilers here, but the family then enjoying pizza, gulab jamun, and they're talking about the various idols and all. So how did this format work? Who brought the Hinduism, who brought the Greek element to it, and then the family aspect towards it as well?
So I will just share one thing, that the hospital, Peaches and Pearl, is, I am sharing this for the first time. This hospital, Peaches and Pearl, is based on a hospital in Pune called Oyster and Pearl, where my husband and I went once every 15 days for his treatment.
Yeah.
And room 909 is the room we occupied.
It seemed very personal. Even it comes out in the book as well. Absolutely.
Part of it was, our family went through a very difficult 7-8 years. It happens.
For our viewers and listeners, those who don't know, Bhavna's husband was the super cop, Himanshu Roy. We'll dig out our file footage that we have of Mr. Roy. He was suffering from cancer, but that left a deep impact on you and on your brothers, on your two other brothers, who are promoters of a lab that has come up with a test named after your late husband, and it's called the HRC test.
Himanshu Roy cancer test.
The Himanshu Roy cancer test. So, great loss to the family, but humanity has learned from that and is benefiting from that because of this test that your brothers, your siblings, two other brothers have come up with.
Our dad was a scientist. So he and Ashish had started a company. It was in the space of nanotechnology and creating medicines for diabetes cure and cancer cure. When what happened with Himanshu was discovered, because it recurred with him after some 16 years, which is not ordinary. Normally, if it doesn't recur within 10 years, doctors say, you're out of it. And he was doing PET scans. They were doing that for 10 years. And after that, Dad and Ashi changed the direction of the company. Wanted to work on cancer. And cancer, the thing with it is if you catch it early, it's a very weak disease.
Right.
Can be beaten very easily. The problem is usually caught late. At stage 3, stage 4. And by which time it becomes very late.
Yes.
In Himanshuda's case, when it was caught on him, I mean, normally man doesn't survive beyond if you have more than maybe 5, 10, 15 tumors. Himanshuda had 150 tumors in him. He was built like a bull, so he fought it for 2.5 years. So what they discovered was a blood test, which you can do once a year, which tells you that I'm Ashish and Anishta, of course, know it a lot better. Anishta also joined. And
Which one is your twin?
Ashish is my twin brother.
Ashish is
Anish Dada is 6 years elder. Didi is the eldest, 8 years elder. So Ashish and Anishta run the company. So with this blood test, essentially, you can be told that the mutation to cause cancer has happened, which means tumor formation is imminent in the next 5-6 months. So you catch it very early. Or it'll tell you that you don't have cancer right now and you have no chance of tumor formation for the next 1 year. So the vision is and it's just a blood test. No invasive procedure, because the PET scan itself is dangerous, by the way. The PET scan itself can actually end up triggering.
So what Mr. Roy had told his brother-in-law was that, look, I have it, and it's a complicated process for cure. Like cure in the sense
It's
treatment.
so expensive.
So what happens with
what happens to ordinary people? And Himanshuda, he told Ashish this. It was one of the most poignant things. There was,
कि गरीब क्या करेगा?
Each chemotherapy thing which was regular was costing some 2.5 lakhs. How does a common man afford it? But if you catch it early, it's very easy to cure. So that's
why the labs are working.
That's what the labs have started. We've just launched a service in Mumbai.
Yeah.
There's an NHS trial going on. We're going to release it internationally, and it's called the Himanshu Roy cancer test. The company is called Epigenesis. Ashish and Anish, and we've had Himanshu, the dad, many others. It was a difficult 7-8 years.
Also, the book reflects that, which you were talking about.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that.
Yeah.
Because in the book, there is, I think, Anirban is the person who's questioning all the time. He is the one sort of asking that, there's a flaw in your sort of ideas of Hinduism or your idea of idol worship. However, the Abrahamic faiths say this. And then the dialogue you bring in.
Yeah.
So, again, reflective in the family.
Actually, the Anirban character came from another place, and I'll let Didi answer that. But I'll tell you what because many of these conversations, what helped us through those 7-8 years was, of course, we're a very strong family, and ultimately, look, everyone suffers grief. That's one of the fundamental philosophies of the Dharmic way as well. Gautam Buddha had said the first of his 4 noble truths. Grief is the fundamental reality of life.
Accept it.
Accept it.
Yeah.
And if you have a strong family bond, you can get through it. But what also helped us are the philosophies, that we grew up with, the philosophies of the dharmic religions. And many of these conversations, would be stuff that we would discuss
in your home?
Within the family. We grew up with this. But then perhaps if you can explain Anirban's...
So I'll
the character
backtrack a bit to what I had referred to earlier. So I had created this basic manuscript of ideas. And I love to say that Amish and I, in our creative partnership, are a bit of a yin and yang. I'm yin and Amish is yang. I'm feminine, he's masculine. What do I mean by that? I'm a person of ideas. And these ideas in my head, can spill all over the place. Amish brings in the structure, the order. In its most basic aspect, at the end of those 3-4 months when I sent an initial manuscript to him, he called me up and very gently said that, Didi, this is a little academic. It's textbookish. Can we do something differently? So I said, Amish, I'm at a loss for ideas. What should we do? He said, you leave it to me. And he created the conversations from that basic manuscript of ideas. He created this wonderful family that was in the first book, Dharm. Dharmraj, Lopamudra, the old couple, their daughter Gargi, and the son-in-law Nachiket. The names are not casual.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not
So-
Gopal and,
No,
that kind
absolutely.
of
From the
names.
Upanishads, yeah.
Yeah.
They're from the Upanishads. And Dharma was a discussion among, the four basic characters. What happened with the idols, though, he also did something else. When I sent him the initial manuscript, he sifted the manuscript into what went into Dharma and what would later go into idols. When it came to idols, I began the work first on the manuscript. And I did my basic work and sent it to our editors. And, lucky are the authors who are blessed with extremely harsh editors. And the initial editorial pushback was humongous, to say the least. It was huge. It was also very explicit. It wasn't verbally kind. I was appalled. Books are to authors what children are to parents. And I was completely appalled. I didn't know what to do. Almost, at the initial germinating stage of every new idea, there was a strong pushback. I sent the manuscript to Amish, and he said, and again, the Amish magic, he said, Didi, what I suggest is let's create another character. And what we will do is put these words of the editor verbatim into the
skeptic.
Yeah, the skeptic. And thus was born Anirban. And then let's answer those questions. And we did that when we completed the Anirban story creation of Anirban the skeptic. And his words are the words of the editors.
Wow.
And
Interesting.
and when we did that, then Amish said, I do think the basic family is, they're the foundational characters. Anirban has fleshed out wonderfully. We need one other character who will be a foil to Anirban. And thus was born Dr. Adarsh.
Let's discuss the book. There's one question I have to ask you. Before we get into the book, I always read, dedications in the beginning because it gives me a little insight. Amish's, of course, because I've read so many of his books, so that I know. Yours I found very cute, in which you dedicated to your sisters-in-law. Now, that is a new one, like in the sense that I've rarely read authors who dedicate other than their children, maybe to a guru or somebody like that. But it's so sweet. I'm going to read it out. To my sisters-in-law, Meeta, Donetta and Shivani, my friends, my confidants, my sweetest ring fence, my strongest support, my sisters beyond the bounds of law. For you are more than in-laws. You bring joy to my brothers, a steadiness to their lives, and solidity to my world, my family, my three goddesses. What a lovely, lovely thing to write. I will cherish you till the day I die. These family bonds, see, it's easy, may I say, to, or maybe it has its flip side, to bond with people you're born into. But when somebody comes into the family, to share your sibling and to have that kind of, that connect with your sisters-in-law, and to see that it increases the scope of your creative process as well as your family, that's a wonderful dedication.
One of them is sitting in the back room.
Yes.
Shivani.
Hi, Shivani.
Hi, Shivani.
You were supposed to say, hey, Shivani. Right?
Tu lagti hai nani?
No, love you, Shivani.
Love you, Shivani. Shivani is, Amish and my pillar. And that dedication comes completely from the heart. My brothers are indeed my world. When it comes to the men in my life, I have been in a rare and very special manner blessed. My father, my husband, my three brothers, my nephews, exemplary men. As for my brothers, their spouses are fundamental to their good life. and all three struck gold.
Lovely. Okay, so the question, let's get to the book now, in which, since the book is about idols, so let's begin with that.
Yeah.
So there's one place where Nachiket says, an idol worshipper is open-minded and humble when it comes to religion. If we are willing to worship anything, even a stone, then we shouldn't have a problem with those who worship differently. So this brings in in the introduction where you say where the book came in from, when you were talking about this person who, why when
The
you
kid
were
at a
asked.
lit fest, yeah.
Yeah, when this journalist, again I'm going to quote, an Indian journalist, publisher of a fashion magazine,
Oh, yeah, that was the other
publicly
thing, yeah.
wrote that the, quote, destruction of idolatry is a good
Good
fight
fight.
to
You
You
fight.
won't name the journalist or the tweet or whatever?
I'm a polite guy.
Acha.
Come on.
Okay.
It's look at the arguments rather than the individual.
So here we are going to come as to the germination of the idea was from this comment by a journalist who said that destruction of idolatry,
Yeah.
that
Ironically, that journalist also called himself an environmentalist. Where actually idol worshippers are natural environmentalists because nature is not a resource to be exploited; it's a goddess to be worshipped in our way. Look, there's this tide of history over 2000 years where idol worshipping cultures across the world were wiped out. They didn't die; they were wiped out. They were killed.
pagans.
What are called pagans today. And most of them are museum pieces now. India is among the last surviving ones. Japan, Shintoism, China to some extent.
Mesopotamia. And
They're all
there's
wiped
a-
out.
Yeah, Egyptian.
Mayan.
You can
Mayan.
Mayan all
Wiped
wiped
out.
out. You can
Absolutely.
we can
Aztecs,
go to the
Incas.
pantheon and we as Hindu idol worshippers will feel sad at that place. But the Italians themselves don't feel sad. Because
Yeah.
their memory has been overwritten. There was a control alt delete. It was reformatted. Right?
Yeah.
And over these centuries, people with complete clear moral certainty just went around massacring tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people simply because they worshipped idols. Right? No other crime as such. Among the worst crimes in history are actually done by those who have this moral certainty. Whereas in
Fates
the
of the book, you mean?
where you're stuck in binaries, right? No, it's a characteristic of even, I would say, atheism in the West. I was in the Oxford Union debate recently, where we were discussing the subject of God is a delusion. Western atheists are, in a way, frankly, a reaction to the Abrahamic religions that they rebelled against. But at that debate, the way those Western atheists were speaking about Christianity and Jesus Christ, I'm not a Christian, but I was feeling uncomfortable, offended. Yeah, and you have every right to question. But there are some words that should not be used. Like we say in Hindi, Shabdon ki maryada. You question, but yeah, talking about God, you're talking about a religion. Have some manners, some politeness, right? And when people get too comfortable with binaries, good, evil, black, white, that's when many of these crimes happen. At a fundamental philosophical level, the difference between idol rejecting and idol worshipping is idol rejecting says the cultures say that the divine is a singular, very specifically male God who exists outside of the universe. And the universe itself is profane, a product of original guilt, right? Which is why they exploit nature, animals, everything, because these are all profane, right? Idol worshipping at the fundamental philosophical level, where it's different is, yes, there is a divine outside, but the universe itself is also divine. The earth is divine, the rivers, trees. That's why we are natural environmentalists. You and I are divine. That's what Namaste means. I bow to the divine within you. When you see everything as divine, you naturally become intuitively liberal. You naturally accept other points of view, even though you'll stubbornly say, I'm going to hold on to my point of view. But you have every right to follow yours. That's cool, right? Don't force your way on me. I'll not force my way on you. This is one of the things that has actually been forgotten over the last 2000 years. We need to revive it. It'll be good for the world, frankly.
So you're saying this idol worship, idols, is the conclusion of this sort of Sanatani way of thought. It's epigenetics in a way, right?
It's one of the parts of it.
Yeah.
See, because it's not that we did only idol worshipping. We had atheists in our way of life. We had
which is also part
nature
of Sanatana.
worshippers
Absolutely.
in our way of life. And the entire concept is essentially we see the divine in everything. And you don't even have to believe in a creator God. You can be an atheist. Charvaks, Mimamsas, Sankhyas, they didn't believe in a creator God. But you essentially follow the law of cause and effect, karma, dharma. That is, and even the gods are subject to the law of
Yes.
cause and effect. At the end of the Mahabharata,
They condemn each other. They curse each other.
Absolutely.
Lord Krishna is cursed by a human being, by Ma Gandhari. And he doesn't say, how dare you, this is blasphemy.
He accepts it.
He accepts it as you command, mother. Because even the gods are subject to the law of cause and effect.
When you sat down to write the book, the manuscript, and you said that it sort of flowed as well from the collective sort of readings, teachings, how you grew up, your family. Sort of, that's why I used the word epigenetics earlier. Sort of an unlearned history of our culture, of our family roots. In a way, Sanatana Dharma.
Yes.
How much of that was poured into this book?
In an Indrajal kind of sense, completely. We have, and in an Indrajal kind of sense, it's not just Amish and I think every Indian is born epigenetically with, this story. All Indians, not just Hindus. It is said that no Indian listens to the Ramayana for the first time. We are born knowing these stories. Coupled with which, there was a passion for reading. It is said that children don't do what their parents tell them to do. They do what their parents do. We learn through imitation. My parents were avid readers. And in my case, my mother said that, my daughter was born holding a book in her hands. They're my constant companions. All of us read a great deal. We converse a great deal. So if I have read a book, then so has he, and vice versa. So there's this collective pooling. And as for philosophical reading, Amish and I share that passion. Me in a more global sense, Amish also in a global sense, but focused in the Indian
So how did the
Dharmic way.
conversations in your house happen, Bhavna? Like, in the sense that, suppose you had a different interpretation of Dharma and your father has a different, maybe like you mentioned in one of your interviews that your mother's from the Shakta tradition, your father had a more esoteric way of looking at. Yeah. So, was it like the debate in the book, or where it's free to discuss? Because in some families what happens is that, suppose it's we're debating about Rama, right? About God Rama. And I might have, like my son might turn around and say that what he did was wrong, which is very common when we discuss Rama, with different interpretations, because कृष्णा के बारे में इतना नहीं बोलेंगे, बट रामा के बारे में, शिव जी के बारे में इतना नहीं बोलेंगे जितना it becomes a source of debate. Suppose he says that, there'll be a grandparent who'll say, no, don't you dare talk like this. How were the conversations in your home?
I think not only in our nuclear family, but in this case, I will say it emanated from our grandparents, and in our larger family, there was always a freewheeling debate. My grandfather, actually, my paternal grandfather, our paternal grandfather, Baba, used to teach us the rules of the game of debating, I remember, as children. And he had introduced us, to this ancient idea of Purva Paksh and Uttar Paksh. The idea being, if I'm making a point, and I've made a point, then Amish has to first make clear to me that he's understood what I am saying. So, Purva Paksh. So, there is no answer to what I have said till you and I are on the same page as to what did I say. Once we are on the same page as to what did I say, and you're not trying to trip me or, be over smart, then you reply. And then when you give me the reply, then I am to first prove to him that he and I are on the same page as to what he said. You know,
So
have I
respond and not
understood?
just react.
Yes.
Also, because Babaji himself was a Pandit at in Varanasi at Vishwanath Ji, and used to also teach at BHU, Banaras Hindu University. He taught maths and physics. He was a Sanskrit scholar. So he would tell us from the early days, you know, what our traditions were. There's no concept of blasphemy in ancient India. We are supposed to question. We aren't supposed to judge. We are supposed to question so that we can learn and apply in our own life. And that was the approach in our way. We discuss, we talk, and from a young age we'd have philosophical discussions. And we were always a knowledge, wisdom obsessed family. As we used to joke, Saraswati maa ki bahut kripa thi, Lakshmi maa dur rehti thi. But that was the tradition. And it was the same way on our mother's side as well. Our grandmother was a teacher there, Nani Ma. And I guess we were lucky that we grew up in that atmosphere. And this is actually what our traditions were in ancient times. You know, sadly, we don't teach those things in our education system. We don't know among the greatest debates that ever happened between Adi Shankaracharya ji and Vandana Mishra. That's not taught to us.
Yeah.
You know, so we don't know what our traditions is.
And
our
we've lost
traditions
the
are.
essence of listening and debating in the manner that we should.
There's this lovely book called Vada. You know, I think I'd shared that with you as well. It was written by
Vaad Vivad
Radha-
wala Vaad.
Yeah, there was a book. Yeah, exactly. And the book was called Vada. It was written by Radha Vallabh Tripathi. No relation. It's a community's name. And he had written many of the principles, and those are things we learnt actually when we were growing up. And the entire concept was actually all of us are supposed to discover what works for us. And you can only do that through questioning, but always being respectful as well. So, in fact, you know, you raised the point of Lord Ram. After the Shiva trilogy, I wasn't sure which series I would take up. I had various ideas in my mind. And in fact, I'd written an article at that time, around 2013, an incident that happened at a Lit Fest, where someone questioned Lord Ram, which they have every right to.
Sure.
But again, the kind of words that were used really upset me, right? And I'm not the kind of guy who'll, you know, start shouting and screaming or something. But the words that were used actually upset me. You have every right to question. Nothing wrong with it, right? And I'd written an article at that time by, I think it's still there on the web somewhere, perhaps Hindustan Times, that why I still proudly say Jai Shri Ram. And I'd written an article saying that what our perspective to questioning should be. And that incident perhaps happened to me because that day I decided my next series is on Lord Ram, and I started writing the next day itself.
Yeah. In fact, when you wrote it, my thing was, why is he stopped on Shivji? Because the first trilogy was fabulous, you know. So it was like, let him continue. And why now it will get political because you're writing on Ram, but it didn't. I loved it. I loved that series too, and Sita.
Yeah, the second book.
Was like,
Thank you.
It was fantastic.
It was
The warrior
fantastic.
sort of angle.
Yeah, because I'd read Divakaruni. That is a different perspective
But your
altogether.
interpretation was
Your
very unique.
interpretation
Thank
was
you.
fabulous.
But so before we go deeper into this conversation, I want to just pull back a bit on this. So there are a lot of people over here now who maybe are not familiar with the sort of nebulous nature of our culture, our religion, Hinduism. So the sort of conclusion and also the parallels that you've drawn in your book, what holy scriptures can you just classify them from the start that you guys depended on? And
Good
how
question.
did it work?
I think perhaps the better word than nebulous would be plastic. Plastic, I mean that it's adaptable. There is a strength and solidity in that. We are the only pre-Bronze Age culture that is still alive. We must have some strength that we are still here. Every other pre-Bronze Age culture was wiped out. And as I said, most of them were killed.
What is
actually.
that? Kuch to hai.
कुछ बात है.
ये सदियों रहा है दुश्मन दौरे जमा हमारा, कुछ बात है कि हस्ती मिटती नहीं हमारी.
Words of Muhammad Iqbal.
Muhammad Iqbal, ironically. But so there is a central solidity and strength but we adapt as well, right? We take the best of the new, but we stubbornly hold on to the best of the old. We refuse to be overwritten. And I guess the best thing that describes that is actually plastic, right? We are
Malleable.
Yeah. But with us, if you're so malleable that you're just a doormat, then you have no existence of your own, right? But if you're so rigid that you break, then you're gone, right?
So kaun
We
si
have the
kitab hai,
best
sir?
of both.
Yeah.
So, in this, then it's more a library than a specific book, right? You find the path that works for you. The first standard, the entry level is always Ramayana and Mahabharata, always, right? Then from there you find various different incidents. They refer to Puranas, they refer to the Vedas, they refer to the Upanishads, they refer to the Brahmanas, the Aryanas. And then you read what path works for you, right? Didi, if you want to add to this.
No, it's a complete answer.
But what I sort of gathered from this is the Mahabharata, the way it was written, was sort of, he has made it easier for the common man to understand the complexities of the Upanishads, the Vedas also.
True. Because through a story, look, we are essentially story-consuming creatures, right? I think it was Muriel Rickenson who said that the universe is not made up of atoms, it's made up of stories, right? And when philosophy comes garbed in a story, it's just much easier to absorb. That's what the Ramayana and the Mahabharata do. But they don't just teach us philosophy, they teach us governance, they teach us geography. That's why the Ramayana and Mahabharata in our gurukuls, pathshalas, everywhere, it was always the first thing you start
Foundational book,
with, right? Both. And I genuinely, I've said this often, we must teach it in our education system, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. It should begin with it. And then you'll notice like the way Ramayana and Mahabharata are structured. You'll have, it's a bit like if you're on the internet and you have a hypertext, right? So there'll be an incident just going in a flashback to explain a point at this point of time. And then it'll come back to the main narrative.
Yes.
Then another incident, it'll come back. Now, you have the freedom to explore that incident a little deeper, right?
Yeah.
Because it was an incident that was mentioned, say, in the Skanda Puran. Then read the Skanda Puran now. So it's like the internet, right? You have a core website that you go to, which is in our way the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. They are the foundational texts, right? The first standard, right? And then discover what works for you and then go deeper out there. And you will find what works for you. No one will say this is the one truth. You better follow it. Otherwise you're going to burn in hell for
That's the strain
eternity.
that Amish keeps coming to, that there's no one way.
There isn't.
no one.
There isn't. Because you are different from me. Right? So you will discover your own path. Like, I am by natural nature a slightly rebellious person. So someone like me, Lord Shiva is like the natural god I'll get attracted to.
Yes, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
But who am I to judge someone who likes order, who likes compliance, and therefore is attracted to Lord Ram, as my elder brother Anish Da is. He's attracted to Lord Ram because he is that kind of person.
Yeah, in the book you say Lord Shiva is like the biker god. So I mean you're absolutely right. It's basically what you make of it. But you begin with this foundational thing that the Mahabharata and the Ramayana.
And
also,
Ishan,
sorry,
if
go
I
ahead.
can add a bit to this, the Mahabharata we know was written by Rishi Vedvyas ji. His name is Vedvyas ji. So he was also the compiler of the Vedas.
Yes.
And then he wrote the Mahabharata as well to make it accessible, to the beginners.
Yeah.
Valmiki ji himself wrote 3 versions of the Ramayana.
Yes. So the greatest author in India, you could say, is Vedvyas ji when you think about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And his original name was actually Krishna Dwaipaya.
Dwaipana,
Yes.
the forest, right?
Yeah. So Dwaipayan is actually who was born on an island,
Okay,
Dvipa.
okay, yeah.
And Krishna because he was dark skinned.
Dark skin, yes.
But Vedvyas was actually a title. Those who compiled the Vedas for that age get the title of Vedvyas. So Krishna Dwaipayan ji is the Vedvyas of our age because he compiled the Vedas. And Didi said rightly, there are those who say the Mahabharata is perhaps the 5th Veda because it explains it all in a story so that you can understand because the Vedas can be hard to understand.
Yes.
And it's also you'll see creative people, whether a singer, a dancer, a movie maker, they'll take stories from the Mahabharata. It's so compelling to make any art form based on something that you've read in Mahabharata, and it clicks. Certain stories click for you, certain stories click for somebody else with the Mahabharata. I just interviewed Prakash Jha, the filmmaker, and he's made a movie, which has Rajniti, which was like similar to
Mahabharata.
Mahabharata.
Absolutely.
to Mahabharata.
Yes.
He took
Yes.
some of the characters were from there.
Kali Yuga, that delightful movie.
That movie, yes.
Starring Shashi Kapoor.
Yes, that was so beautifully
Fabulous
made. Yeah,
movie.
at that time. And then many of us have read, but there is this thing, is it true what they say that Mahabharat ko ghar mein nahi rakhna chahiye, ladaiyan ho jati hai? Tell me about that.
I've studied in South India. I don't think this thing
It's
is
not
there
there
in South India.
Yeah.
हमारे घर में है महाभारत.
Yeah, he has it
हम
in
नहीं
his
लड़ते.
house.
So, हम नहीं लड़ते.
If the derivative holiest book, the Song of the
Yeah.
Gods, the Gita, is from the Mahabharata,
How can
you remove
नहीं, वो
the...
कहते
You-
गीता
you know-
रख सकते हैं.
But
I
you
don't
know,
understand.
one of the things that happened, I have this theory that the kind of attacks that we faced over the last 1,000 years. Will Durant had said the Turkic invasion of India was perhaps the bloodiest in human history.
Yes.
No invasion has led to more deaths than the Turkic invasion. What we call the Delhi Sultan Mughals. They were Turks. They didn't look like Ranveer Singh
No,
or
the desecration of our temples,
Prithviraj Kapoor.
all of that.
They
Yes.
weren't Indian. We must clarify that.
Yeah.
The establishment historians have done a disservice to India by calling it the Islamic invasion, making it out like some Indian Muslims were ruling us. The Indian Pasmanda Muslims were as oppressed at that time as the Indian Hindus. We are very clear that the British were foreigners. Even in our movies, we'll show them as white speaking English. But we'll show the Turkic invaders as Indians speaking Urdu. Urdu is our language. It wasn't their language, right? Their language was Turkic. Anyway, but coming back, this invasion was so brutal, and the British invasion was much more insidious, much more intellectual.
Actually, this is not even said in Pakistan. You know.
and-
When they don't call it the Turkish invasion, I mean, they don't use the word Turkish or invasion, but they refer to it as Islamic.
That we came.
Yeah.
That's
They say
another-
we came. That's,
They have
it's
their
like-
own identity
It's like
crisis.
chickens. It's
Yeah.
like chickens celebrating KFC. I mean, it's a little strange.
Most
but
Pakistanis
anyway,
think they're
but
Arabic
anyway,
descendants also. So, I mean,
but the invasion was so brutal that it led to changes in our history. Didi had pointed out something really insightful. Why? Because you find almost no ancient temple north of Karnataka. If you want to see a really ancient temple, you have to go down to Tamil Nadu or Kerala, because that's where the invaders didn't reach.
Please
right?
don't
Deep
ignore
enough.
my state, Karnataka.
But the Hoysala, the great Belur, Halibe
Yeah,
temples
Belur.
were attacked.
Yeah, they were.
Right?
Correct.
And they were among the most beautiful temples on earth. Right?
Yeah.
So, what actually, in Delhi, we are sitting in Delhi from the slave dynasty, 1200, to the British era, around 1860, 1865. Not one temple was built in Delhi, right? You find no ancient freestanding temple in North India. You will only find ruins because they were all destroyed, right? And a result of that was actually temples moved within the house, right? It's not so common in Tamil Nadu or Kerala in ancient times, because the only place we could keep our temples safe was in the puja ghar at home, right? Adi, if you want to expand on that.
So
You,
this was,
in the book also it's there, right? About
Ganpati
this-
Visarjan.
Yeah, the Ganpati Visarjan.
Sanjeev Sanyal also mentions this in the book. That
Taking out celebration.
That Bal Gangadhar Tilak ji,
Correct.
the fact that
Divided.
he said that let's get the Ganpati Visarjan going again.
Yes.
We won't stop, just because the British want us to stop. Well, let's bring it out. It's a form of it was a political message as well to gather the masses around this, beautiful sort of iconography
And
that is
that
there.
we can celebrate outside our homes as well,
Right.
as we did in the pre-invasion times.
Yeah.
So my, a cousin-in-law of ours called Sunil Nair, he's a Keralite. He's a scientist in ICER and in Pune. My cousin Ashna is also a scientist. They're both physicists in ICER. And he had pointed it out to me. I wasn't aware of this. He said that to me that Didi, in Kerala, for instance, or even South India largely, the paddat of keeping the puja ghar at home is actually the result of Bollywood and the North's influence in probably the last 50 or 70 years, because the Hindus in the North faced the invasions. In the south, even Islam came commercially, through commerce. In the north, it came through invasions. And, which is when the invasions came, why have we survived? As opposed to the other, our fellow idol worshippers of the ancient past. Because we went silent. But our temples moved within our homes. Which is not a practice so much in South India. Historical practice नहीं है. ये North Indian practice है. हर घर में पूजा घर. हर घर में पूजा घर. Temples have moved in.
In the book, though, there were some holdouts, even with the invasion. You do mention about Dara Shoko, though.
Yes.
That he was one of the outliers who actually did do us a service and our culture a service by translating, I think, the Kashi Vishwanath, the verses over there. What can you just tell us a little bit
The
about
Upanishads. He
Upanishads.
translated the Upanishads.
The mingling of two oceans.
From Sanskrit to Persian. Absolutely. So, there were good British officers as well during the British era and not the Christian era. We do not call the British period the Christian period. So there were good British officers as well.
So then why do we call the Turkic period the Islamic?
Yes.
Islamic.
So
They were
Dara
foreigners.
Shikho was a good man, as was Akbar, but they were not Indian. They were Turks and, Mughals. Mughals, why do we call them Mughal at all? Why don't we call them Mongol? And because that's the origin. They were Mongols. And the minute we call them Mongols, the debate ends. The Mongol period.
It's in the word
The
itself.
Turkish
The
period.
etymology is...
They
Yes.
themselves were Turkic Mongols. They called themselves Temurid. They didn't call themselves Mughal. They called themselves Temurid. Or Gokarna, which is the son-in-law of Genghis Khan. So they were part Turkic, part Mongol.
Gokarna?
Gokarna.
Wow. Okay,
Not the place.
not
Gokarna.
the place.
That's where the shivling is.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. So let me now come, to the book. Amish, you've been on television debates. Well, not debates, but discussions.
Yeah,
but
I
you
don't really do debates.
Did debates. You've been interviewed by all the top anchors in our country, and you have watched the debates. Most people are very angry with the way television debates have gone, and that I found resonance in the book, because just to connect it with today, when you say, and I'm going to quote from the book, you say, we often discount even a sensible input from a person we dislike just because we do not like the source from whom the input is coming, even if it appeals to our senses. Instead, we must learn to respond. Reaction is immediate, response is centered. So it implies a time gap. Even silence is a response. So Lopamudra, who's one of the characters in the book, says that basically don't let others control the strings, don't get triggered. And then it goes on to Lord Buddha and one of the stories which you link, and I'm not going to do a spoiler and narrate that. But it brings us today to some of the things which are happening in our society where it can just be Swachh Bharat message which Mr. Modi is doing. That will be debated and that will be rejected by certain people where I'm not going to accept this. It could be something about demonetization said by another politician saying that it didn't serve the purpose. The right-wingers will reject that. Not take the message but color it by the person. So how does one change that? One is, of course, don't react, respond. How does one bring that discipline within you? How do you become a listener, analyze? What does it happen? What
It's
do
an
our texts say?
attitude. It's an attitude. Again, among the greatest debates that ever happened, Adi Shankaracharya ji and Madan Mishra, do you know who the judge was for that debate? And remember the
Where
way
did
it
it
works
happen?
in the Indian 7th century. So
Where
around-
did it happen?
In Ujjain. So around 1300, 1400 years ago, right? It was
Adi Shankaracharya was a Shiv Bhakt also,
yes,
right?
and Mandana Mishra was a Buddhist.
Was a Buddhist, yeah.
And the judge was Mandana Mishra's wife, Ubhaya Bharati. Okay? It says something of the honor and respect that women had in those days. Remember, a judge is actually above the debaters, right? You would assume that she has
She didn't
more
recuse
knowledge.
herself.
That she has more knowledge.
Huh.
And she decided Adi Shankaracharya ji is the winner, right?
Very Buddhist of her.
No, it shows that because Actually, in those days, Buddhism and Hinduism wasn't really seen as
Yeah.
different. In North India, Gautam Buddha is seen as the ninth avatar of Lord Vishnu. So it's a modern. We can be Hindu. In fact, it's one of the points we make in the book. In Japan, there's 67% Shintos, 70% Buddhists. So adds up to more than 100.
Yeah.
It's because in India, I can be a Sikh, Hindu, and Buddhist at the same time.
Yeah.
We don't believe in binaries. But the point I was trying to make is that you look at the arguments and listen calmly, breathe, right? And it's one of the things I know it's more difficult to do in today's day because the public square is such, mass media is such, social media is such. Social media is designed to put you into a rabbit hole of more extremism.
Yeah.
It's very instructive that most of the creators of smartphones and social media, and you can check this, that the top billionaires and multimillionaires who created, they don't allow their own children to be on social media, right? Till they become old enough. And yet we allow our children to just, get onto it because the algorithm is such. So best thing you can do, what I try and do also, what all of us try and do, listen to those whose views you disagree with. But try and find the best of that point of view, right? So Neil Ferguson, for example, right? He actually defends the British Raj. He thought it was a good idea. I very viscerally disagree with him. But he's not some random idiot. He's one of the smartest men in the world, right? Real intellectual, real scholar. So I like to read his books, right? To challenge me. It's one of the ways to do it. And there's this lovely line which is there in the Natya Shastra. Satyam bruvat priyam bruvat. Na bruvat satyam apriyam. Speak the truth, but speak it with love. And if you cannot speak the truth with love, then stay silent. It doesn't say lie. Just stay silent, right? And wait for the right time to speak. But essentially the value of good manners, speaking politely. You'll be surprised how much you can communicate to another person if you're just polite. If you just have basic manners and try and listen to the best point of view from the other side as well, you may just learn something, right? And this in the Indian way comes very naturally. This is what we try and get across in this book, Idols. That's why you see there are different points of view, but they debate respectfully with each other. That's the way it is in our family as well. We don't agree on everything. Look, if two people agree on absolutely everything, one of them is not required, right? It's the way the world is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But if you listen respectfully, you'll grow.
This is where I want to bring in the Greek element in this book. Where did that connection come from?
Divi.
So I'm fascinated by the lovely stories from the ancient fellow travelers of ours in the path of paganism. Let's reclaim that word proudly, paganism, from all around the world. And they are lovely stories, from Pandora to even Narcissus. Imagine they had a god of narcissism. How amazing is that?
Wine, Dionysus, Soma.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I found those stories fascinating, and there's a parallel, among all these stories. So we have our Surya Dev, and the ancient Egyptians
Zeus.
had
not Zeus.
Amon,
yeah.
and absolutely. So the sun god Helios.
Helios, right.
So Apollo. Was truth,
And
order,
those temples
light.
to these Greek gods, if
Were
you go to
destroyed.
Cyprus, you go to...
Ruins.
There's no worshipping of those.
Yeah.
Like यहाँ पे सूर्य देव को you'll worship. You'll go,
But they're also in ruins now.
कुछ नहीं है यहाँ पे
No, you
दीपोत्सव
go
होगा
out there, you
कुछ
see
नहीं। Yeah.
the murtis of Athena, for example, nose cut off, hand cut off. Very
Mutilated.
similar.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, temple of Apollo was brought down in Egypt, and the church of John the Baptist was built, atop. Or was
We've
it?
also got destroyed temples, but with nose cut off, arms cut off. वहाँ पे पूजा नहीं होती है. But then there was another temple built again by another king or another, not necessarily a ruler. You know, there were people from the community who built a temple and said, let's worship that, क्योंकि ये desecrate हो गया है. A broken idol is not worshipped. So you created. But that didn't happen in Western civilization.
They surrendered.
They surrendered. It was over.
Somnath Ji was rebuilt 17 times.
times.
One of the reasons our ancestors were stubborn people. Stubborn people. You lose only when you surrender. You know, har jeet hoti rehti hai. Some battles you win, some battles you lose.
Yeah.
That's a way of life. But you lose permanently only when you surrender.
You know,
our ancestors never
not.
surrendered.
When we were talking about the art of listening, those of few viewers, listeners, you have young children in your home or you have older parents, this art of listening is extremely important. I'm just going to read out this, and I have parents, in-laws who are old, and I tend to make the same mistake, which after reading this I figured out, because what one of the characters, Lopamudra, says, the art of listening without judging is the most precious gift, Gargi, to listen to whatever a person has to say without contradicting. Really, really listen with empathy. It reduces the noise in their head, she says. That goes on further to say, because there'll be many times that you have older parents who are repeating themselves, and most of us say, "Mama, sun chuke na, baar baar kyun bol rahe ho?" Or we say, "Bas karo, I don't want to listen to this rishtedar who you are talking about. He's dead and gone. I don't want to listen to his stories." So we tend to do this, and we are then encouraging them to keep that noise in the head. It is going to hurt their longevity. It's going to hurt their peace of mind. It results in all kinds of problems. It's the same with your children if they come to you. So what this character says, Lopamudra says, is give them the window to tell them what they need to hear. Practice kindness, give solace, soothing an aching heart. It's not a bad thing, So without being preachy,
There was Didi's lines. You wrote it so beautifully.
Yeah, I loved it.
Have you seen Shall We Dance? Richard Gere and
yes,
Susan
that where they
Sarandon?
go out to dance, and when they're this older couple.
This is before my time. But
Lovely. No,
that was rude.
So mean. So Richard Gere is doing this commuting back and forth in the train and commuting in New York. You know how it is, a mind dead exercise of just commuting. And he sees he's not a dancer, and he sees this, and it's this magical movie which he just walks in, and he's got two left feet, but he just learns. Like, go ahead, Bhavna.
So what I want to share, with you guys, just came to my mind while you were reading that passage. Lovely, charming story. You've seen the movie, where this is an old couple. Beverly is Susan Sarandon, and of course, I think Richard Gere was John. John in Hollywood is like Rahul in Bollywood.
But he's a universal, global crush. So let's leave it at that.
True. So they're an old. It's a good marriage, and Richard Gere discovers his passion for ball dancing. And he's also embarrassed. So he keeps it from his wife. There's a secret. But the wife sees this transformation. It's an old couple, it's a very old marriage. And she starts getting worried. She starts getting suspicious. Is he having an affair? And she goes and hires a detective to find out what exactly her husband is up to. And the detective, does his thingy and says, okay, let's meet at this bar and I'll tell you what your husband is up to. And they meet at this bar. And the detective tells Susan Sarandon that your husband just goes and dances. And then in that lovely conversation in the bar between the detective and Beverly, Susan Sarandon says to the detective, why do you think people get married? And the detective is taken aback. He says, maybe passion? And she tells him, I'll never forget these lines. She says, people get married because we all need a witness to our lives. Someone who says to us, your life will not go unnoticed because I will notice you. I will notice the little things. I will notice the fact that you don't put the cap on the toothpaste and you leave the bathroom and then you rush back to cap the toothpaste. I will notice that you smash a hard-boiled egg into your dal and chawal and you enjoy it, that mash. I will notice these things. This is why people get married. How beautiful.
Yeah, true. So that's what, even in when you see the affection between Shiva and Parvati in the trilogy.
Yeah.
That aspect we've not learnt in when we were, growing up years. How they complement each other. You've heard.
It's sadly because we don't teach our ancient Sanskrit texts. If we'd read Kumar Sambhava, if we'd been taught Kumar Sambhava of Kalidasa, we would be surprised by it.
Yeah.
If we'd been taught Ramayana and Mahabharata, in there they show so many beautiful scenes. But we are our education system has been made in a way कि पढ़ा लिखा के बच्चे को अंग्रेज बना दो. We don't teach our own.
Because what do we know about our Rama and Sita? It's the Swayamvar which we know. I mean, most kids would just have, frankly, if the conversations are not there in the family, like in your family, it would be through Amar Chitra Katha and maybe the Ramayana serial, right? So you would see the Swayamvar, you'd know about the Vanvas, and then the Agni Pariksha.
But there are such beautiful scenes in the Valmiki Ramayana itself. When they are in the Vanvas, in the time they spend with each other, the Viraras, when they are actually separated, when Lord Ram, and because he was waiting to cross over, and the rains had come.
Yeah.
The way Valmiki ji describes Lord Ram's, pain and anguish when he's waiting to see, goddess Sita. And, the way he described it was so immortal. The way the clouds came. Kalidasa used it in Meghadutam many centuries later. The same description.
The dark clouds.
It shows the deep love, romance. It's all there. We just don't read it.
This is
that's the sad part.
Yeah, I want to. So, because I guess there are a lot of interpretations of this. Let's trace it back. What do you think the original text doesn't survive, right? Of the Valmiki's Ramayana, it's been interpreted again into by. Go ahead.
Look, there is a critical edition of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, which was done in the 20th century by Bhandarkar Institute and Sayaji University. So, but that critical edition is based on various different texts that were found.
What is the earliest known text that you can think of?
No, those texts are essentially from, they can go back thousands of years, right? But there were different versions of it, like some changes, right? And also remember, because of the climate of India, things have to be rewritten onto papyrus scrolls every, I think, 3-4 centuries. So the fact that actually our ancestors kept rewriting them, that's what actually kept them alive, right? But every time it was rewritten, was there a slight change? Maybe, perhaps. Who knows? But that's the point that our ancestors made. Who can be sure about anything you want to witness at that time? The only thing you can be sure of is this moment. Everything else is either a record or a dream, right? Did our ancestors keep good records? Much better than practically every other culture on earth. So we have to trust those records.
I ask you because in the book itself, you talk about this sort of interpretation not made by our ancestors of our books, wherein you talk about the interpretation of Ravan, that in the south he's actually considered a very pious Shiv Bhakt, etc., and the north considers him this demon king who was slain. But that's not really the truth. Even in the north, next in Delhi, Risaka, I think, is a place where there's a temple. Bisrak, sorry. Yeah. There's a temple which is made.
In fact, that's among the oldest temples.
So now this is the thing.
I also
these different interpretations.
But
you see.
These are all our impressions of our culture over the last 100 years are radically different from what our ancestors had. So you won't find any temple to Ravan in Tamil Nadu which is older than 70, 80, at max 100 years old, right? But you find temples to Ravan in the north that are centuries old. In Kannauj, in Bisrak, There's a temple dedicated to Ravan's wife on the MP Rajasthan border, right? The most ancient texts say Ravan was probably born close to Delhi, right? At Bisrak, right?
That's his birthplace.
Yeah, yeah. His father's name was Visrava, so Bisrak has been named after his father. He was most probably a North Indian.
So this whole thing of Dravidians worship Ravan
Does the Kamba Ramayanam
doesn't.
In fact, the Kamba Ramayanam is much more devotion. Kamba Ramayanam is, for those who don't know, is the Tamil
12th century
version of the Ramayana. Yeah, at least 800, 900 years old. It is among the first devotional Ramayans. Because the Valmiki Ramayana sees Lord Ram clearly as a man. Remember, Ravan had asked a boon that only a man can kill him.
Okay.
Right? So, Valmiki Ramayana sees Lord Ram as a man. Right? Kamba Ramayanam clearly sees him as a god. Right? So, Kamba Ramayanam is not so, Ravan is great. No, not true, actually. It's a relatively modern thing. The same with Mahabali. We hear this Mahabali thing also.
Yeah,
Human,
exactly.
God, the controversy.
But how North Indians see Mahabali? Didi, you should explain this.
Negative.
See this of...
So, this is something, taught to me again by my grandfather, Baba. When I began to tie the Rakhi.
Yes.
First, of course, only to Anish, and then when the twins came, every Hindu sister, whether she's North Indian, West Indian, East Indian, or East Indian has a very specific connotation, or South Indian, says, Yena Baddho Baliraja Danavendro Mahabala. I tie this thread of protection to you, my brother, the same that was tied to Mahabali, the mighty, the charitable. Said by every sister all over the country. When the kalava is tied to, by the priest after a puja on your wrist, this is what the priest says. So, Mahabali is a hero all over India.
If you can just, because our viewers are here, just expound on the sort of legend of Mahabali. I mean, what we remember is that the third step, the Vamana, when Lord Vishnu came as Vamana.
Yes, the Vamana avatar.
He basically, the third step that he did was he took control of this demon king who was wreaking havoc over all the known universes at the time. Right?
He certainly wasn't wreaking havoc.
Yeah.
No.
This is a story
now if you
created
can
by
just-
Christian missionaries.
Yes.
You want to do it?
So, no, he certainly wasn't wreaking havoc. And this thing that, again, that these binaries that are taught to us, good, evil, this family will always be bad, this family will always be good, Asura is always bad, Deva is always good. Not true. Prahlad was technically an Asura. His father was
Hiranyakashipu.
So, Mahabali was also an Asura. There were Devas who were punished.
Mahabali was the
Asuras who were
grandson
praised.
of
Asuras are not
Prahlad.
demons
I know.
in that
They are
respect, but then
half-brothers.
people,
And they are from the same creation.
Asuras,
They were divided.
Asuras and Devas
from
had
Brahma.
the same
Yes,
father.
Yes,
Yeah.
They had the
correct.
same father. They are half
Exactly,
brothers.
yes.
They just had two different mothers.
Different, yes.
Okay. Our way was never this binary. This is good, this is bad. You'll go to heaven, you'll go to hell, and you'll burn for eternity. Why will God do that? And just because you didn't worship him, you burn in hell for eternity. So the Mahabali was never seen as negative, right? In North Indian traditions, like I said, he's seen as a great soul, as a great ruler. And the legend was that he sent him to another world, to the netherworld,
To the third
world,
to the
rule
third level of
hell.
Patal, which is the Sutal Lok.
Sutal
Yeah.
Lok, right,
Yes, which
okay.
is the third level. And
And
may I?
he took
Sorry, go ahead, go
he
ahead.
took Vishnu down with him.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
Yes,
oh,
correct.
yes,
Yes, I know about that part.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Vishnu's wife
he was
begged.
taken aback and pleased by the humility of Mahabali that he made them the king. He made Mahabali the king of the third realm of Patal Lok, which is the Sutal Lok. And Mahabali said that when he discovered that Vaman Avatar is really Lord Vishnu, he said, well, then, if you bless me and tell me I'm the king of the Sutal Lok, then you've got to come with me to Sutal Lok and live with me. And Lord Vishnu, therefore, for 4 months every year, which is what we call the Chaturmas, lives in the Sutal Lok with his great devotee Mahabali. And Rakhi also finds its root in the same legend, because it wasn't just the 4 months, Mahabali said, you've got to come and live with me, and Lord Vishnu had gone to Sutal Lok forever and had left Vaikunt. And Lakshmi Ma was bereft. She rightly wanted her husband back. So she dressed, changed her wish and became an old, decrepit lady and went to Sutal Lok and asked, the great charitable Mahabali for a boon. And he said, anything, Ma, what would you like? And that's when she transformed into her real form, Ma Lakshmi, and tied him a rakhi, saying what she did, what my grandfather taught me. And having tied the rakhi, she said, you are my brother now, and I need my husband back in Vaikunt. So he said, well, a brother has got to answer any wish of the sister. And all right, Vishnuji, you can go back to Vaikunt. But then Vishnuji said, 4 months in a year, I will come and live with you every year, the Chaturmas.
And this year, 2023, we have the Adhik Mas in Chaturmas.
Yes.
We had an extra month.
Yes.
Yeah.
And on Devothan Ekadashi, Vishnuji comes back to Vaikunt. Interestingly, as a final, touch to this beautiful legend, when he left Sutal Lok for the first time, he said to Mahabali that I do see Lord Indra is the king of the Devas and he is in Amravati. And there's not much I can do about it right now. He is unstable. He's very easily made upset and is misled. I promise you, Mahabali, that after Kali Yuga, in the next Yuga, you will be the stable Lord Indra in Amravati.
Wow.
And my interpretation of this is also, you see this across. I think our gods, my reading of it, of all the stories across the Puranas, they used to try and prevent concentration of power. So, and as she said rightly, at times Indradev was pushed and the gods helped.
Yeah.
But it seems
that
right?
poor Indradev is always pushed across our
So he was a
traditions.
deva, right?
Yeah.
And you'd think that in our binary thing, the god will always
He's the
pick
god
the
of
deva
gods.
side,
Yeah.
and always be anti-asura. Not true, right? And those who had concentration of power, what were noble, right? Lord Vishnu or Lord Shiva would continue to bless them, but they would not like to see everything concentrated. But those who were ignoble, like Ravan, would probably...
No, so I always wanted to ask you, I mean, from what I've read and the early Vedic gods, Indradev, Vayudev, Agnidev, it just appears that as our traditions went along, they weren't as, in temples maybe, idols towards these gods are not as prevalent as more sort of the classical Ramayana and Mahabharata gods. Do you see that difference in Hinduism creeping in eventually?
First of all, the first answer to this is actually if you go to Southeast Asia, you find murtis of Kuber, you find murtis of Lord Kuber,
Lord Varun,
Lord Indra, Lord Varun.
Lord of the Seas.
It's very common, right? So again, I know history books have taught us this, but it was written by the British, who always, their entire thing was what was Catholicism and what is the Protestant equivalent, right? They always try and see the world in that perspective. What was the old religion? Which was the one that was replaced? Who were the old gods? Who were the new gods?
New Testament, Old Testament, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
We didn't see the world that way, right? So in today's day, for example, you'll find that you'll find many more devotees of Lord Hanuman, of Lord Ganesh, which may not have, as compared to even, Lord Ram or Lord Shiva, because as ages change, the kind of gods and goddesses who attract us also change. And we see that as natural. That doesn't mean there are some old gods and new gods. They're all there, right? It's just that the age is different. So we worship a different form.
What was
but
that
they're all
movie?
from the same source.
So this is what I was coming to as a continuation of yours. You know, I was interviewing Sunil Shetty, the actor, and he was talking about Bhuta worshipping Bhuta, which happens in Karnataka, and you know, it's considered
Your own
weird.
family also.
Yeah.
Tell them about your own family.
Correct. So, you know, when I took them as kids and my in-laws and all, when I took them to our ancient home, you know, our heritage home, and wahan pe there is a little temple and you do Bhuta worshipping, and then, you know, at that time they were teenagers and they saying, it's such a regressive practice. आप लोग भूत की पूजा करते हो? I didn't know where to start from to explain, and then that, you know, that they are ye rakhwali karte hame. Then there was the Nag, you know, in every home there is a little place in Karnataka where you have the Nagamurti, and that is taken around the village on a specific day of the. There are several traditions where when you were talking about Hindus being environmentalists and idol, so Bhuta is not wrong.
No.
Nagas are not wrong. The worshipping of that, like we were talking
Nothing
about.
is wrong.
Nothing is wrong. Can I explain this? Sorry if I may.
Yeah.
Where this impression, particularly among the younger, and in a world that is highly westernized, right? What is the philosophical roots from which this has emerged? Do you notice that when Abrahamic people, when they die, bodies are buried, they're not cremated, and they say R.I.P., right?
Rest in peace. Yeah.
Rest in peace. Why are you resting? What's it for? Right? You have to know the philosophical roots at the heart of this. Their belief system is that time is linear. There's a beginning and an end. It's not circular like ours. Or actually, ours is more spiral, but okay, leave that aside. In their belief, the earth was created around 6,000 years ago, 6,500, 4,108 BCE or someone.
Ours is way complex.
That's when God said, "Let there be light." Ours goes back billions of years, and it moves in a linear line like this. Okay, the prophets came, the messiahs came. You die, your body is buried till Judgment Day, when God will judge everyone. Then the dead will rise at that time.
So you rest till then.
You rest in peace till that time, till Judgment Day, which was supposed to be a few hundred years. Now it's a few thousand years.
Which is there in the book of Revelation
Exactly.
in the Bible.
So you rest in peace till then,
In
till
purgatory.
Judgment Day, when the kingdom of heaven will start, and then the body rises. So if the body has risen before Judgment Day, which is what their concept of ghost is, then it's evil. Right? That's what the Walking Dead is.
Yeah.
Right? Hence ghosts are bad. They are clearly bad because you're not supposed to have risen till Judgment Day. You're supposed to rest in peace. That's the Abrahamic perspective, which has filtered into Western stories, which is now filtered into all of us. But in our way, life is essentially the soul, right? We have this body for now, but we will die and our souls will go into Pitraloka, right? For 3 generations, then either come back or find moksha. So we don't see Bhuta or souls of our ancestors as negatives. They are just like us. There are some who are good, some who are bad, just like human beings. There are some human beings who are good, some human beings who are bad, right? There are some Bhutas who are good, some who become Pishachas and are negative.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. It's not that they're all, how can you rise before Judgment Day? So, yes, there are Bhutas who, just like human beings can be good, are very noble and they help us. There are some who, just like human beings, can be negative. That's the way it is. That's a philosophical thing at the heart of it.
Yeah, that's why when Kantara came in, then people figured out and explained
more
it.
complex.
It's complex. Like this wasn't explained so beautifully to me by my parents, but you've explained that. And when Kantara came in, then all of us cousins started discussing, right? That,
Like we don't
okay,
say R.I.P.
Yeah.
We say Om Shanti, right? Or Om Sadgati. Your soul has moved on.
And
right?
like he said,
we are not
3
resting. There's nothing to
generations
rest.
Yeah.
And we are always in motion.
You keep the Shraddh also. You keep it for 3. Like you make that rice
You
ka
make
gola 3.
That's why you make three pindas, no?
Yeah.
So because for 3 generations, and now there the concept of time is different. And then beyond 3 generations, they move on. So
And then the
you want
4th
to
one
add
you
something.
let go when one's own father passes away,
Yeah.
he becomes that, and then you say goodbye to the one that ab aap chalega, like, you know,
You're not in Pitralok anymore.
you're not
Anymore.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you don't need to look at
Look
us
out for us.
and give us that protection.
See,
you are free.
Why
now.
do you put those three? Because your ancestors are actually looking out for you. That's the entire concept.
That is the Pinddan
That's a
at
pinda.
that time.
And you're looking out for them.
Yeah.
So in essence, the idea is if you exist, you are divine, either in realization or a work in process. But if you exist, you're divine. And all pagan ways had an expansionary and not a replacement mode of worship. The ancient Tolmecs of South America had a god called Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah.
The Aztecs took over from them, and their central deity was actually Huitzilopochtli. Bit of a tongue twister. But they took over from the Tolmecs and inherited the god Quetzalcoatl as well, who actually in later years became the central deity, although Huitzilopochtli hung on also. So if you exist, you are divine, and these are woven into our stories as well. Our very ancient playwright Bhasa wrote a lovely play called Urubhanga. In
Duryodhan.
which,
He's also, yes,
yes.
correct.
Not bad, I'm impressed.
Yep. Yep. So Duryodhan's other name is Suyodhan.
Suyodhan, yes.
Actually, you can be this also, but you choose to be this. And Duryodhan's best is realized on the battlefield when he's
dying.
when he's moving on.
Yeah.
And what a resplendent, magnificent man he turns out to be as he says goodbye, not only to his wives, his son Durjay, his parents, but also his aunt Kunti, his brothers now,
Yeah.
the Pandavas.
But he's imperfect. He couldn't stop Ashwathama.
Yeah. He tried to advise him
He
as
tried
well.
to advise him, yeah.
Yeah, he tried to advise him as well. And it was Suyodhan at his best. He realized it before moving on, which is why the Pandavas reach heaven and find
just Yudhishthir.
Duryodhan.
Because the rest fall back,
Yes,
but
yes.
Duryodhan is there.
Only
So
Yudhishthir.
that's the contradiction
Only Yudhishthir.
that theme, that contradictory theme in your book throughout, where even in this chaos there is a certain, there's a message. You
There's a
see it
principle.
throughout. In
Yeah.
every page it's
Yeah.
coming out. But see, I'm going to go back to those various cultures that you're talking about. Listen, this could be a conspiracy theory or whatever, but these ancient traditions of ours, did you see a common theme? The Indian, in Indian traditions, the Indian cultures and Greek cultures, do you think that these people commingled? Their theories bounced off each other? Their gods probably were the same. Is it possible? They're from different names. I know because in the book you talk about there's similarities in Lord Hanumanji and Hercules without the angst. I'm quoting from the book. Did you notice that?
So, there were wise men among all these cultures, and wisdom has
Men and women.
men and women, men including women,
Okay.
as stated in the Indian Penal Code.
That's true.
And wisdom has some central tenets which were common across the globe. Whether the stories germinated individually or traveled in this direction or in that direction, frankly, doesn't matter. It's not important. We don't know. As Amish said, really, we don't know. But the central threads of wisdom were common. There is order, there is chaos. There is light, there is darkness. There is the good in bad and the bad in good. And there is a forever movement towards the center. There is higher love, there is lower love. There is war and wisdom, which always seems to dance
Coexist,
together
yes.
in ancient myths. Very interesting, war and wisdom, because there can be, even in Islam, there is the lower jihad, which is the jaddo-jahad, the struggle within, where our good is engaging with our bad. The Kauravas and Pandavas, there's good in the Kauravas, there is bad in the Pandavas as well. I'm using good and bad very
Yeah, I
simply.
mean,
Yeah,
there's
yeah, I know.
deceit and there
It's
are
fine.
Yes,
it's
yes,
used. Yeah,
yes.
you
But
take
somehow-
out the baser instincts at some time.
Yes. But somehow, had the Kauravs won, it would not have seemed right.
Yes.
And the search as to why it would not have quite seemed right is a joyride for us.
Yeah.
course, yeah.
Amish, I have to get to bring it back to the
Ideas.
current some of it. So, where do you stand on the Sanatan debate which is going on right now?
Okay.
It should be eliminated. It should be gotten rid of. It's the Sanatan is idol worship. It is casteism. It's machhar. It's all that is there, and a lot of self-flagellation about how destructive religion has been. Sanatan, that aspect of Sanatan Dharma has been. So the rituals are okay, but Sanatan as got corrupted because of it. Where do you stand in all this? I'm deviating a bit from the book a little bit.
No, I certainly don't call for the elimination of Sanatan. I'm a very proud Sanatani. In fact, I think perhaps the world needs the philosophies of Sanatan right now. This is, of course, not to defend casteism. In fact, actually, I mean, I speak very strongly against the caste system. I don't use my surname on my
Yes.
on my books, and I speak on it using our own ancient texts. The Bhagavad Gita does not say that Varna is based on birth. It says Guna and Karma. Chaturvanya maya shrusham guna karma vibhagasha. We were speaking about the first standard, the entry level into our scriptures, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. What Varna was Valmiki ji born into? We all know he wasn't born a Brahmin, right? Ved Vyas ji was the son of a fisherwoman, right? So our foundational text, the one who compiled the Vedas, okay, was Krishna Dwaipayan.
Yeah.
In the Valmiki Ramayana, there's Satyakam Javali, who is one of the royal priests, the Purohits of Lord Ram's family, right? So it's a very, very, very senior post. He was the son of a single Shudra mother, right? That's the way it was. We must speak against the caste system. But look, any way of life, and that is the Indian way, we recognize that. Any way of life has strengths and areas of improvements, right? To list the weaknesses and areas of improvements as the description of a religion is textbook bigotry, right? And to say that because of these weaknesses, this has to be eliminated. We just spoke earlier of European Christians and Turkic Muslims who have killed hundreds of millions of people over the last 2,000 years, wiped out entire civilizations. Zoroastrian Persia, Pharaonic Egypt, Greco-Roman pagans, Buddhist Afghanistan. They've
Most heartbreakingly, all those wonderful ancient cultures in South America.
Yeah, they've all been wiped out. So are you going to say the same thing about Christianity and Islam? I myself would oppose it, right? Because yes, should Christianity and Islam get over their visceral hatred for heathens and kafirs and the need to do violence against them? Yes, they should, right? But there are other very good things in Christianity and Islam that we should learn from, right? Similarly, should the dharmic religions, should they reform casteism? Of course. But that there are other good things as well. And I would like to point out that European Christians and Turkic Muslims have done very little to recognize the extent of death and destruction they've dealt in the last 2,000 years, right? They probably killed more biomass than anyone else in the history of life itself, right? Simply because they worshipped idols, right? But Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, whatever term you want to use, has done a lot over the last 75 years to reform casteism, to reduce it, right? The reservation system that we have is the largest positive discrimination program, the largest affirmative action program in the history of humanity, right? The West does very little to its historical, to those it has oppressed. So I would say this is deeply unfair. There are two fault lines, okay, in our tradition. One is caste, the other is religion. The mass massacre of Hindu, Buddhist, Jains over the last 1,000 years, and the other is caste. We've done a lot on caste, right? I'm not saying it's perfect. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
But extermination is not the answer.
But we've actually done a lot compared to what the Abrahamic religions have done to recognize what they have done to all the ancient religions. We've done a lot on the caste. We have to do a lot more. I'm not denying that. But every single prime minister till recently was an upper caste prime minister. We have a Shudra prime minister now, a backward caste prime minister now. In every state, you have very powerful backward caste and Dalit leaders in industries.
We've had Devegowda also
in
before.
every place.
Yeah.
No, I meant full-term prime minister. Full-term prime minister, right? Mayawati ji, and across so many states, politically, in business, in so many other areas, we have. I'm not saying it's perfect, but we made a lot of forward movement. And like I said, if you want to look at areas of improvement, there are massive areas of improvements in other religions as well. You're not calling for their elimination, is it? So this is, in my opinion, perhaps textbook bigotry. I don't know who, but if you're saying eliminate Sanatan, no.
Yeah. Just to quote, even according to the Bhagavad Puran, at least the cosmic illusion of Lord Vishnu, every caste is represented on his body. So if even the most downtrodden, the most backward class is part of one of the three pantheons of Hindu gods, how can it be
Ishan, we must still recognize there was caste oppression.
Yes,
that
of course.
In the last... And in Who Were the Shudras, Dr. Ambedkar himself said that the caste system perhaps became rigid around 1500 years ago. Because you see many of the great ruling dynasties, Mauryas, they weren't actually born Kshatriyas, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So Dr. Ambedkar said that in Who Were the Shudras, which kind of ties into even genetic research, which shows that intermingling between different communities stopped somewhere around 1500 to 2000 years ago, which meant that intermarriage stopped, which is again that the communities and castes became rigid. So we must recognize that it did happen, right? We must also recognize that we have done, that the state has done a lot. The founding fathers of our constitution made wise moves, and it has done a lot to improve this.
That's why
over
even
the last
the
75,
new Rama
80 years.
temple in Ayodhya will be representative of all those social classes. There'll be a small temple in near the main temple for Shabari.
Yeah, and for Kevat?
Yeah, for Kevat,
Jatayu, Nishad Raj.
Who we have forgotten, right? Jatayu were in...
The original Shilanyas, one of the original foundation zone was done by a Dalit. So these are good things that are happening. But I'm saying again that I would say, is reform needed? Yes, of course. Is elimination needed? No, man. You know, and because there are other religions which have done massive crimes as well. You know, are you calling for their elimination? This is unfair. This is classic binaries.
Yeah. So 2 questions, one to Amish and one to Bhavna. Let me go with Bhavna first. Ladies, in your book, we began with feeling low and crushed when grief hits us. Then there is negative thought, and then some people are not able to get out of that. There can be many reasons why you are negative in your thinking, and then that happens when we look at our leaders. We tend to look at doers, at somebody who will kriya, somebody who will be action, will not be just thinking just a thinker. You want somebody who can do it, because most Indians will think, jab main kisi ko elect karta hu, you want somebody who will solve my problems for me, right? There's one in which this Nachiket says, some people are miserable regardless of circumstances. Others have life hitting them relentlessly with pain, and yet they seem in control. What are these obstacles, right? And then it goes on to say that how we have limitations. Now, for leaders, how do they get over these limitations? Is it through internal looking at it, or is it through positive action? How does one get over these limitations? And when we are looking for what we want to see in our leaders, do you agree with what I say, that it is somebody who has gotten over these obstacles, or do we give that little thing that हाँ थोड़ा सा negativity होना चाहिए in a person, in a leader? How do we look at it?
I don't know about leaders, but I know leaders too are human beings. And we all engage with our demons and our grief and our lower chakra emotions. And it's a combination of two things. I'll come to the leadership question eventually. It's a combination of two things. It's एक अंदर से आवाज़, to keep growing. Nissim Taleb, has talked about post-traumatic growth as opposed to post-traumatic stress disorder. A very empowering concept. So, एक अंदर से आवाज़, along with, as Amish loves to say, ज़िंदगी में probably 8 to 10 ऐसे human beings होने चाहिए जो पकड़ के रखें, and they are there for you. दुनिया तो है. If you're fortunate enough to, again, I will share, a personal anecdote.
Sure.
And as I said, I'll come back to leadership. When Himanshu passed away, I think, a few days later, my brother Anish said to me that, Bhavna, I think you need counseling. And I wonder what kind of counselor, you would go to, because I don't want you to go to any ordinary counselor. I want you to go to someone, where spiritualism will meet psychology. And he suggested to me that I go to my philosophy school gurus. I was a member of New Acropolis Philosophical School for almost a decade, before Himanshu passed away. And it's headed by this lovely Jewish couple called Yaron and Sivan Barzilay. Anish said to me, I think you should go, to Yaron and Sivan. I reached out to them. This must have been 5 days after Himanshu went. And Yaron replied almost instantly. It was as if he was waiting for me to reach out to him. And the following, Himanshu went on a Friday. And I'm talking about the Sunday after the next. My family, my brothers and my sisters-in-law, they took me to the philosophy school, and Yaron and Sivan sat with me for 5.5 hours the first day. And I went to them for almost 7-8 successive Sundays. But that first Sunday, when I sat with them for 5.5 hours, my family had left me, at the school. And then once I was through, Sivan said, how will you go back home, Bhavna? Because your family must have gone back. Let me call them. And my brothers and sisters-in-law were hanging around outside the school. They were there for 5.5 hours. And they took me back home. The point I'm making is, a group of people, a small group of people who are just there for you, to pull you out and to be there for you when pani sar ke upar chala jaye. Internal as well as, environmental. As for leadership, it is an aspect of becoming. You become a leader. It's almost a transformative journey. The best leaders have innerly transformed themselves and found their potential to lead men and women. And I think India has been blessed with tremendous leadership across political parties in our democracy. India is not an easy country to govern. We are a fractious, raucous, passionate, almost chaotic, people. And our politicians manage to lead us. And in some form or the other, through some party or the other, we have great men and women who are leaders among all the political parties.
Okay. Amish, we talked about with how Bhavna coped with the overriding sentiment that was there for her before this creative process began in these two books. Your fans go millions. You've sold millions of books, and people have read your books who are like movers and shakers. There's Prime Minister, there's Mr. Bachchan, Jeffrey Archer. So many people have written, words of praise, and including some of my colleagues in journalism have praised. How do you keep centered? Don't let it get to you. And your creative process when you write, do you think of those people? Do you think of the masses when you write that ye click hoga, ye click nahi hoga? Or is it just, I have to say this and I'm going to say it?
Actually, the answer is very similar to these. If you have a good family and you've had good parents, it's very easy to remain centered. I've been doing this for, I think, some 13 years now. I like to think I'm still pretty much internally at least the same person. And we've passed through ups and downs of life. I think it is important to remember that whatever work you do, especially if it's creative work, it's a blessing. And if any artist starts thinking it's my genius, my creativity, that's, first of all, that's stupidity. And that's where ego arises from. And if there's something to learn from our traditions on ego, we should learn it from Ravan. A man he wasn't just a thug, he was a genius, right? Brilliant musician, brilliant dancer, brilliant ruler, brilliant warrior in every way. He had the blessings of Lord Shiva, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Sone ki Lanka thi.
Yeah, because he built it, right?
Yeah.
He administered it well. But his ego was his downfall. So if you stay away and control your ego, it's in your own selfish interest. You're not doing anyone else a favor. You're doing something good for you yourself. That's a lesson from Ravan. And if you have a family which is essentially stable, which, at home I'm still Amish, which is wonderful, right?
The younger brother.
Youngest.
वो फर्क पड़ता है,
Yeah, and which keeps you stable. There's this lovely Sanskrit Mahavakya, yad yad karma karomi tata dakilam shambho tavaradhanam. Every action, every karma that I do, my Lord Shiva is a prayer in your honor. Just believe that he'll send the blessings. Someday the blessings will stop, then maybe it's supposed to stop at that time. Right now the blessings are still coming. I have to keep writing and I have to always remember it's his blessings.
Wonderful.
It's not my creativity, it's his blessing.
On that note, may Mahadev bless your family and give you all the happiness and success for this book. So as I said, viewers, listeners, pick up the book. Yes, there. Buy
No
it.
such thing as too much marketing. Idols. Amish and Bhavna Roy, idols.
Lovely. Thank you so much for being part of the
guys.
podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening or watching this edition of ENI Podcast with Smita Prakash. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you have seen this or heard this. Namaste. Jai Hind. Click here to watch the previous episodes.